In the camper van ahead, there were two extremely cunning thieves. The police had taken positions from every direction. They cocked their guns, ready to storm in at any moment. But Cameron sensed something was wrong just in time. As the police slowly closed in on the camper, the situation grew increasingly tense. Before the police could make a move, suddenly a burst of gunfire erupted from inside the camper, catching the officers completely off guard. The police quickly reacted and unleashed heavy fire on the camper van. A female officer grabbed a loudspeaker and ordered them to cease fire. The gunshots soon stopped. After what had just happened, the commanding officer ordered everyone to pull back to a safe distance. Then the female officer attempted to negotiate with them. A loudspeaker slowly extended out of the window. Ken announced that he would not surrender. However, if the police were willing to give him 5 minutes to think, he might consider a compromise. Before that, he demanded that all officers withdraw from the area around the camper. The police agreed to his request, and the loudspeaker was pulled back inside. 5 minutes passed quickly. Ken decided to tell them the location of half the stolen jewels. He made up a random address and successfully fooled the police, but the female detective was no amateur. She immediately noticed that the loudspeaker always came out at the same angle and speed, so the detective stepped forward herself and boldly walked straight toward the camper. It turned out that minutes earlier, the two had already escaped through an underground shaft. The loudspeaker and the gun inside the camper were both being controlled by machines. Realizing their trick had been exposed, the two could only run for their lives. Sure enough, when the detective entered the camper, there were no fugitives inside at all, only mannequins creating the illusion. This completely confused the officers outside. A blanket on the floor caught the detective's attention. She lifted the blanket and opened the hatch. Below was a deep, dark tunnel. One police officer after another jumped in, heading deeper to investigate. Ken and Cameron finally reached the tunnel exit. Just as a car passed overhead, Ken pushed the manhole cover open from below. They finally made it to the surface, but they didn't dare relax for even a second. Watching trucks constantly pass by, Ken came up with a plan. He told Cameron to go into a nearby shop and buy a hot glue gun. Ken pulled out a bayonet and ran straight toward a large truck. The officers inside the tunnel moved quickly, and before long, they reached the same area. Just then, Cameron walked out of the store and nervously scanned her surroundings. As she wondered where Ken might be, a truck with a large hole cut into it drove past her. A man's head popped out from the back of the truck, signaling Cameron to come over. The moment Cameron reached the truck, the police opened the manhole behind her. She quickly climbed onto the roof of the truck, perfectly avoiding the officer's sight. She handed the hot glue gun to Ken. Ken secured the piece of fabric he had just cut to the top of the truck. He told Cameron to grab the roof railing. He climbed inside as well, pulled the fabric tight, and now they blended perfectly into the truck's cargo area. He reinforced it from the inside, hoping the disguise would fool the police. By now, police officers had surrounded the area below, carefully searching every corner. As the truck driver started the engine, the two felt victory was within reach. As long as they got out of here, they would be safe. But unexpectedly, before the truck had gone very far, armed police stopped it. The officers ordered the driver to get out and open the cargo compartment for inspection.
Van a abrir la puerta. Agárrate la barra y apoya la cabeza encima. Cuando te diga, te requieres todo lo que puedas. Ahora.
The two straightened their bodies and held their positions. When the doors opened, everything inside looked completely normal, with no sign of anything suspicious. Cameron struggled to hold on. Maintaining such an extreme position was a huge physical challenge for her. The police continued inspecting carefully. Just as she was about to give out, the officers told the driver to close the doors. The two collapsed instantly, like deflated balloons. Unfortunately, the cautious officer still decided to check the top of the truck.
Mierda, están subiendo. Ahora al contrario. Agarra la barra y húndete. Ahora.
Their bodies were already at their limit, and all they could hope for was that the inspection would end quickly. After a thorough check, the officers reported that the truck was clear.
C'est bon, vous pouvez partir.
The two finally let out a sigh of relief. When they heard the engine start again, they knew they had escaped the inspection. Just like that, the two criminals were carried away on the truck roof by an unsuspecting driver. Meanwhile, after a long and exhausting journey, the old man finally found their leader, Berlin. But Berlin warned him not to act rashly because the police had already traced the hotel where they were staying.